afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar hosted by Patagonia Health. Today's webinar topic is on practicing in a heart-heavy time, an invitation to rest. If you aren't familiar with the Zoom webinar platform, take a look at the control panel at the bottom of your screen. Here you can configure your audio settings, send chat messages, and ask any questions that you have. As a quick background about our awesome special guest, Stacy Otto is a therapist at Catalpa Health, specializing in infant and early childhood mental health for children ages 1 through 5, addressing concerns such as attachment, anxiety, depression, emotional regulation, adoption, and abuse/neglect. With over 30 years of experience supporting abused children and families, she holds master's degrees in social psychology from Purdue University and social work from the University of Minnesota, Twin Cities, plus a capstone certificate in infant, early childhood, and family mental health from UW-Madison. Stacy is also a registered child parent psychotherapy therapist and a long-standing mental health consultant with We Aim's Reflective Supervision Learning Collaborative. Outside of work, she enjoys reading, yoga, cross-country skiing, time with loved ones, and caring for her cats, Teddy, Tiggy, and Sarah. So without further ado, I'm going to go and pass it over to Stacy, and we'll get started.
Great. Thank you, Denton, for that warm invitation and welcome. I'm trying to get the screen share on here. Hopefully that's working there. I want to welcome everyone today, and I really hope that our time together will be beneficial and helpful. So here, let's just jump right in. Okay, this to advance. We go. Denton shared, right? I'm working at Catalpa Health, and outside of that, I do some private work for Nurturing Connections. That's in the role I'm in today, practicing again in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, a little city in northeast Wisconsin named after Chief Oshkosh of the Menominee Nation. And this area is also the ancestral homelands of the Ho-Chunk, in addition to the Menominee people. Today, I will humbly share what I have learned so far. I ask that my elders who are listening or community members please forgive me if I misspeak or leave out any important information. I'm doing my best to share with heart, sincerity, and good spirit what I know so far. So our objectives today, we have just three. The first one being that I want to increase your understanding of resiliency and what are the benefits of resilience. Next, our second objective is going to be to explore some coping skills, and we'll do some practicing of those today too. And the third objective is just throughout for each of you to be recognized and feel validated for the meaningful work that you're doing. If you feel comfortable, I'll ask you to put in the chat now, maybe what your role is, where you're practicing, if you're a therapist, if you're in public health, but again, whatever your role is, and perhaps how long you've been doing that job. But again, only it's an invitation, not a demand there at all. Kind of for a little roadmap of what we're going to be doing today. This time will go fast. In our first part, we're going to do these introductions. I'll be introducing then the concepts too with a few slides for kind of get us all on the same page. Then we'll dive into the resilience. And then for the second objective, for those coping skills, we're going to look at R.E.S.T, which I see as in a way as an abbreviation of resilient. And I picked my favorites, which would be reflection, expressive arts, self-compassion, and trauma stewardship. Throughout our time today, we're going to be having some experiences to kind of calm and regulate. We'll save a little bit of time for questions at the end, and then we'll close with a very brief loving kindness meditation. I'm going to start with one of my favorite quotes. I've been using this for a long time. It is in the shelter of each other that people live. Each of you, right, in your roles and in your personal life, provide so much shelter to other people, right? Your work matters, you matter, And what I'm really hoping for today is just for this time together that you can come in from the shelter of all the storms that you've been dealing with, the burdens that you carry with the work that you're doing. So much of us are so always outward focused, right? Focusing on the other. And today, this is really for you to kind of get some rest. Um, and this idea of the talk came originally when Patagonia staff reached out to me. We were looking at me doing a talk on, early childhood trauma, attachment. But just in talking, it just really kind of came up with the idea that this is such a stressful time for all of us. And what is it like for professionals to be showing up every day and having to hold so much suffering when there's such chaos and hard things going on? So that's a little bit of where the talk idea came from. So I'm going to invite you again to check in now. And again, if you feel comfortable, put this in the chat. You do not have to put your number in the chat. How do you think you're doing? If you would kind of check in, and I know this changes sometimes daily, sometimes within the hour, right? Depending on what sessions or what's happening. How are you mentally, physically, emotionally? Um, just kind of take some time to give a pause. And if you're showing up on the higher end of the scale, well, that's great. I really hope, this time will add to your lightness and your energy. And if you're noticing, oh my gosh, I'm kind of serotonin depleted here, I'm kind of crabby, I'm kind of, life is kind of hard. Well, we'll take that number too, right? We will accept wherever you are at. And again, hope wherever you're at, this talk recharges you. Throughout our time together, you'll be noticing some different pictures of nature. And this, in a way, is coming from some of Deb Dana's work with the polyvagal theory, that sometimes we can't be in nature, but even just looking at nature scenes. And these were pictures that either my husband took or my oldest daughter, and that they shared. This is from the Superior Hiking Trail up in Minnesota. And I'm going to encourage us to just do a body scan right now. Take a nice, deep, slow breath in and blow it out. As you're slowing down your breathing, kind of notice, right? Are there any areas of tension, any stress that you're carrying in different parts? Next, deep breath in and blow it out. And then this third breath, let's raise our shoulders up to our ears. I don't know about you, I carry so much stress in my shoulders. Bring those up, just hold it for a bit, and then a nice slow exhale. As I was preparing for this talk, I looked at some slides for some presentations I did during the COVID pandemic. And this information is from Forrest Hansen, who is Rick Hansen's son. And he was doing some different talks and brought up like how tired everyone was at that time and the cost of the stress we were under. And he was sharing that the families we're working with are more and more stressed. And I think I was starting to notice that with the professionals I'm working with and also my clients. And in fact, just a few weeks ago, there was a single mom that I was working with who was raising her little 3-year-old. And she just started talking about, and she did give me permission to share this quote about the state of the world. And she said, feeling the heaviness, the world is so uncertain and scary, so much hate. And that she was just saying that that was really making it harder for her to do her job, her professional job, but also to show up as a mom. And again, what is it like when we are exposed to this more and more intensity? From Bruce Perry's work, the international presenter or researcher on trauma. Again, this is from his work on COVID. I think this relates to this time now. We are also exhausted, dealing with some decision fatigue, and we've lost that sense of safety in our world, right? It has been eroding. He encourages no blaming. However, no matter how regulated you are and how many yoga, right, classes you're going to, with prolonged stress activation, we get worn out, tired, and despair. So what are we to do? Looked at this study that was done in February of this year by Modern Health, and they looked at 1,000 adults ages 18 to 65. and looking at their stress levels. And we had almost half of the people filling out the survey, this questionnaire, was that life was easier during the pandemic compared to now. And they said that they're really dealing, right, with surging levels of stress, low moods, and need for more mental health services. Anxiety, right? That has continued to increase. I wonder if you're seeing that in your practice too. By 2020, right in the pandemic, close to half, 47% of people reported having anxiety regularly. Now that's having it, not being diagnosed with it. And by 2023, this number just continued to increase, with it being the most common mental health illness in the world. And just for a point of comparison, about 1/3 in the US of adults will report a diagnosis of anxiety. But along with anxiety increasing, we have rates of depression and suicide have also surged, especially for young adults and in marginalized populations. Again, in the US, about 1 in 5 adults will experience a mental health illness in a year, but almost 50% are not going to receive treatment for this. And again, then since 1999, the suicide rates have increased about 30%. Some of you may be working in emergency rooms. Your clients may be heading there, right? The emergency rooms are overwhelmed. Homelessness, we have increasing, especially for those who have untreated mental health issues. This is putting a strain on schools, on workplaces. One study estimated that over 160 million Americans live in areas that are considered that they have mental health professional shortages. And this is from Health Resources and Services Administration of 2023. So then what does this mean for us? How are we doing, right? Burnout is becoming more common and is increasing. In my area, right here in Wisconsin, I'm seeing providers leaving the field. There's more and more stress on us. It can be taking a toll and more demand of services, right? And it's really hard to say no then because there's more and more need out there. So what does this mean, right? Are we going to give up? No, right? We want to embrace the impermanence. It's so hard to embrace this at times, but this time we are really happy about this, right? This is not permanent. We will regenerate, we will recover, and our body's going to know what to do. And I'm going to lean into a quote from Martin Luther King Jr. This was from a talk or sermon he was giving on June 3rd in 1958. Can we have the ability to lift us from the fatigue of despair to the buoyance of hope, right? I hope, right, that we can bring some hope today, and then again, that you can share that with your clients and feel that in your life, because hope, we're kind of lost without it. Time for another picture. Here we go. This is from California in the High Sierra Range. I encourage us to just roll our shoulders forward, take some nice, slow, deep breaths in, and blow it out through your mouth. Roll it forward a little bit. And let's reverse that a few times. There we go. Taking in that beautiful nature. Let's jump in. Right, here we are for our first objective. What are the benefits of resilience? Okay. And what is resiliency? So the first person to study resilience in an experimental setting happened way back in the 1980s. It's this gentleman, Norman Garmese. And he noticed there were certain children who excelled even in difficult situations. And he gave one example of a young boy who was 9, who his father was absent, mom was struggling with alcoholism, but yet he came to school every day with 2 slices of bread, nothing in between. He didn't want people to feel sorry for him, and he was trying to protect his mom. And he came in with a smile every day with his bread sandwich. Charney, who's done a lot of research in the area of resilience, one of his definitions is an adaptive characteristics of an individual to cope with and recover from adversity. Now, in his research, he was looking at prisoners of war and also people who had survived a sexual assault, but he would notice that some of these individuals did not develop a post-traumatic stress disorder or any kind of psychiatric disorders. So he's really curious, like, where is this resilience? What is different with these individuals? A more recent definition of resilience can come from some of Valerie Kaur's work in her Revolutionary Love Project. And she's a civil rights leader in building up community and with people of color. And for her, she says it's not never feeling harm, right? There's hard things going on here, but it's moving through it, dancing through it, and breathing through it. Another definition from this Dr. Thema: bouncing, walking, crawling, leaning back from adversity. So some of these individuals are really saying that if our common definitions could be sometimes too heroic, too rosy, we're going to really miss people and miss what can resilience show up as. For example, during the pandemic, right, some people were like learning different languages, learning a musical instrument. For some of us, being resilient just meant, getting out of bed every day, feeding our kids, and just dealing with all the stressors that were going on. And here's a little quote here: if we only recognize resilience when it is shiny, we're going to miss it. Another example could be if we look to the Olympics and gymnastics, Simone Biles, right, in Tokyo 2020 was delayed. And then when she was competing, right, she needed to step back for her own mental health. This was not recognized in all parts of society as something that resilience, but I feel differently. I see that was her really showing some really strong resilience. So again, this Dr. Thema was saying that resiliency can really be a radical act for my wellness and care. We live, though, in a society that authenticity is really not promoted or accepted at times. We as practitioners, especially in the mental health field and public health, I think can feel extra pressure, right, to ignore ourselves and our needs, right? Our body says we're tired, we're hungry, right? We want to go outside. And it's like, no, we have more importance, we have notes to do. There can just be a lot of pressure. And our worth is promoted by being busy. And plus, we have these demands of productivity. So that can be a challenge. So again, we can ask, what really is this resiliency? Is it a quality? Is it a trait? Is it a skill? Is it taught, genetically determined? So again, we're going to look back to, or turn to Charney's work here. Based on his research, what's associated with resilience is being extroverted, having the ability to be emotionally regulated, being open to new experiences, and trained in mindfulness and attention. Being present, right, and having the ability to not ruminate on the past. And I just want to put a little side note here that both Charney and his colleague here, Southwick, have personally been challenged. Southwick was diagnosed with cancer a number of years ago, and Charney back in 2016 was actually shot. He survived by a disgruntled coworker. So that they both had to show a lot of resilience to deal with that. From some other research, resilient leaders will provide high energy, they'll be motivating, they'll be collaborative. What is it not? When they studied teams that were kind of struggling and not showing the resilience, these teams, again, that were struggling had more irritability and anger. There was persistent illness, common illness on these teams. The workers had poor memory, trouble sleeping, moodiness, reckless behavior, and lack of hope, right? There's that hope again. Again, what is it not? Low productivity, office conflict, again, the more sick leave that would fit, lack of innovation, lack of problem solving, and lack of future planning. So what it boils down to, from what my reading on resilience, is that we're born with a certain amount of it. And the positive really news and encouraging is that we can increase it and we can teach it to ourselves and to the people we're working with. Benefits of resiliency: you're going to be more effective, more productive, more collaborative, all positive things. And going back to some of Bruce Perry's work, what he's really encouraging us to do is, can we make our stress as predictable as possible? Can we moderate the stress so it's not overwhelming and stripping us of our resources, and can make it controllable? This is easier said than done, because stress in itself is not a bad thing. And it is especially more helpful if we can hit those three characteristics of it. Here we are. Time for another chance to kind of regulate. This coming from Georgia, from the Appalachian Trail, a picture there. Let's do a little brain gym. So if you think of the affinity symbol, or basically take an 8 and put it on its side, what I want you to, or ask you to do, is with your right hand, or you could use your either pointer finger or your whole hand, kind of follow the outline, right? And take some nice, slow, deep breaths. Be sure we're crossing midline here, making that infinity symbol. And then let's reverse it, view this way, so we keep balanced. And then let's do it on the left hand too, okay? Make that sideways 8, cross the midline, taking deep, slow breaths, and then reverse it. Good for our brain. Thinking here, making some connections. Okay, here we go. Yay, we're to objective 2. So we're going to explore a variety of effective coping skills and practice using these stress reducing techniques. So R, I picked for reflection, E, expressive arts, S for self-compassion, and T for trauma stewardship. And again, these are just some of my favorites. And when I think about being resilient and what gets me through these hard times, these are some things that I lean into. R being for reflection. I'll ask you now to put in the chat, who of you have heard of reflective practice, reflective supervision? That's what I'm talking about. Reflection can be used in a lot of different ways, but I'm in particular speaking or referring to reflective practice. We'll just do a few slides on that. What is reflective practice? Okay. It is relationship-based. It's creating the space to be authentic, showing up as your true self here. You don't need to wear a mask. It can be done individually. It can be done as a group. And it really encourages you to slow things down. And sometimes, right, when we're back to back meeting those productivity demands, you get a home visit, you have one thing after another, it's really hard to slow things down. Now, this is different type of supervision. It's not clinical. We're not looking at like treatment plans and diagnoses. It's not administrative supervision. That's more focused on like policies. Our work can be so immensely rewarding and also at the same time frustrating, discouraging, and painful. So this reflective practice that's so focused on our relationships, what we bring, what the client brings, it's a different way to look at this. Use of self is really key. We are the most important tool in our work. So what can we do to support ourselves, right? And increase this awareness, right? Our self-awareness of our reactions, our clients' reactions, our emotions, right? And motivations, and likewise our clients' emotions and motivations. In one way, this is different from some traditional models. Traditionally, the consultant supervisor is seen as the role as the expert and not with reflective practice at all. Instead, we enter into the role of co-observer of her own and her supervisee's unpredictable inner experience. Again, it's that stepping back, thinking alongside, right? Not putting yourself over, but you're coming in relationship with. And then we're really wondering, right? Contemplating what has been done, what hasn't been done, and what's behind that, and listening deeply. Rebecca Shimoon Chinook, again, who was a leader, dear leader in this field, talked about what supervision is, like supervision, being able to see deeper, wider, further, looking for patterns that come up, right, in our work with children, families, while also in our work with colleagues and in ourselves. it requires the ability to step outside of the work experience and create this safe, this holding environment where staff can feel secure enough to share, right, insecurities, mistakes, questions, differences, and also celebrate successes too, right? We don't want to overlook those. Can be seen as having a set of caring conversations where you know that, right, I accept you and all that you tell me, right? All of it is accepted. And there, through this, then connections are deepened between colleagues, between a worker and family members, between a parent and a child. There's that parallel process, and connections right to ourself are deepened. And parallel process meaning that what's happening in one relationship is going to be mirrored in all the other ones. Again, I think you're getting the sense here. This is my last slide on reflective practice. It's really giving you a chance to wonder about what these experiences mean. What does it tell us about the child, the family, and ourselves? And exploring the positive and negative emotions about our experiences with the family. Foundation of honesty and trust is really needed. And a quote from Jerry Paul, who again was one of the founding mothers of the field of infant and early childhood mental health. How you are is as important as what you do. And I think that just really highlights. And with the reflective practice, it allows us to really show up how we want to show up. I'm going to send a few slides here talking about the fan. I don't know if any of you are familiar with this. It is, again, a concept coming out of infant early childhood mental health, but it can be used in all areas of practice. And please Google or look up either Linda's name herself or the Erickson Institute, which is located in Chicago. So the fan, as it is, as you see this visual right here, there's these different wedges. We're not going to get into many of that wedges at all. I'm just going to highlight the one, the MSR, which is the mindful self-regulation. So here we are, and how important that is to our work, that before we enter into a session, right, that we ground self, whether that is drinking some water, right, taking some deep breaths, having a snack, ask ourselves, like, what are we arriving with today, right? How did we sleep last night? Are we having a conflict with our partner, with our children, with a friend? Can we put whatever, right, that baggage, those burdens aside? Can we do some breathing? Also, during the session, right, can we have that awareness and give ourselves permission to do the pause, right? Being deliberate really about being present because we can get thrown off, right? This is difficult work that we're doing, right? And reading the news, there's a lot going on, a lot of really, really hard things, dysregulating things. We can get thrown off. We can get thrown off by what we're hearing the clients talk about, right? We're human, it's going to happen. Again, I invite you, if you feel comfortable, please put into the chat some different things that you use to kind of ground yourself to help regulate when you're in the middle of a session. Wanted to share this quote: be careful how you are talking to yourself because you are listening. I thought that also connected with, if any of you noticed in the August Patagonia Behavioral Health newsletter, they had the quote of the month, which is, your body hears everything your mind says, from Naomi Judd, right? So kind of related, right? We're listening, things are getting in. I wanted to throw this slide in. If any of you have questions about reflective practice, would like some more information, you could reach out to me. My contact information will be available, but also WIAIN, the Wisconsin Alliance for Infant Mental Health, there are really in Wisconsin, yeah, the founders of this practice. Here we have a beautiful shot from South Africa. So again, I'll give us a pause for you to take this in, catch your breath. And if you have the energy, I'm going to encourage you to do some heel raises. Standing up kind of increases our oxygen. I don't know, for some of you, this might be your lunchtime or after lunch. You can also stay in your chair and just lift up your feet. I'm going to stand behind my chair and just let's do 10 of these. Raise up on your toes and down, up and down, up. A few more. This is very grounding, very regulating, helps stimulating that vagus nerve. Maybe you can imagine yourself right on this coast looking out. We're to E, expressive arts. Love this quote. The arts are a way of speaking the unspeakable. Some things we do not have the language for or do not want to say. Previously in my practice, I worked with a music therapist a lot, and it was just amazing to see what she could do with the instruments and using music. It has really encouraged me to look for ways to use art, writing, movement, poetry in our sessions. So we're kind of limited since we're, just in a Zoom webinar right now, but I'm going to try to put in some different expressive arts. This was a picture that I used a lot. Again, I'm referencing COVID a lot during that time with the wave after wave. I feel that now when I, get brave and open up my news to read. It's like one thing after another. We have the political chaos, right? We have wars going on. We have ICE and that what's happening with that, and natural disasters. It just feels like it can come on and on. And I think this picture, in a way, represents that more than even words could talk about. This, some of you may recognize this if you think back to when you were in high school. This is from A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. Now, this, can you imagine this was written in 1859? And think about how relevant that this feels now. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness. It was the season of light, it was the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope. It was the winter of despair. We had everything before us. We had nothing before us. But again, that really reflected. And if you think back to the end, and maybe right, you don't remember, it ends with a sense of optimism and not crushing defeat. So maybe encourage if you want to go back and read that for some more hope. Next, I want to share, and for the last expressive art activity, a poem, one of my favorites from a dear friend, The Peace of the Wild Things by Wendell Berry. When despair for the world grows in me, and I wake in the night at the least sound in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty, on the water and the great heron feed. I come into the peace of wild things who do not take their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the present of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars waiting with their light. For a time I rest in the grace of the world and am free. And another picture of nature for us. This is from the Boundary Waters in northern Minnesota. Another way to regulate right, is to just invite you, if you want to, squeeze both fists together in your arms and hold them tight with a deep breath in and relax. Let's do that 2 more times. Deep breath in, squeeze those fists as hard as you can and relax. And one more deep breath in and blow it out. We're on to our S, self-compassion. I think this is one of my favorites of all time. Self-compassion, how important it is for myself and for the work I'm doing with my clients. How can we respond, right, to the suffering that we are exposed to? So many moments are really hard to bear, yet can we still try to help if we can? I found this helpful from the work of, here we go, Gregory and Long, when they shared that everyone is on their own life journey. Some mantras they shared are, I am not the cause of this person's suffering, nor is it entirely within my power to make it go away, even if I wish I could. The practice being on the inhale, you breathe in compassion for yourself to soothe yourself, right? We need to be soothed. And then on the exhale, right? Exhaling compassion for the other. It's a beautiful balance, I think, not just focusing on the other's needs. We have needs too. And can we remind ourselves that, right, we did not cause the suffering and we alone cannot cure it. Again, tying it to resilience, right, comes from Salzberg's work. It's an important ingredient for resilience. It helps when things are hard. Can we learn to stay here, right, more and more of the time? And right, think we're going to get dysregulated. We're going to get off course, right? We can start over, right, and give ourselves that grace. We can come back. We're going to lose it. We're going to lash out. But then we're going to notice that we get to come back sooner and sooner the more we practice this. We are so encouraged and raised, right, to have compassion for others, and how important it is to nourish ourselves, right? Or it's really hard to be able to give this to other people. Trust that we are enough. I'm going to even say that again, how important that is. Trusting that we are enough and no comparing, right, to other people, other practices. Compassion is when we are really touched by suffering that's in the world. Self-compassion is when we are touched by holding our own suffering. And can we hold, right, our own pain with love, with understanding, bringing in that care, kindness, and tenderness? And a lot of this is from Kristen Neff's amazing work. Can we become our own, be our own best friend, be there for yourself? So according to Neff, right, the three main components of self-compassion are mindfulness, kindness, and common humanity. Mindfulness, telling ourselves this is hard, right? Trying to not get lost in the pain. This is a moment of suffering, telling ourselves this is a part of life. May I be kind. Saying to ourselves, I am sorry this is so hard, right? Say that daily, say it multiple times, and then go to, and what do I need now? Right? Giving ourselves permission to feel this pain. With the kindness, right? Coming in with that understanding, no self-judgment. Is so easy for us to step into judgment and being critical, right, of others, of it, and more importantly, of ourselves. Give ourselves permission. It is okay to make mistakes. It is okay to be imperfect, coming with that support. And then that common humanity, right? I am not alone in this. I'm not the only person. Sometimes we can be right in our little silos, but suffering is universal, right? 10,000 joys, 10,000 sufferings. This is not just me. We are all in the same boat. We really are here. We are connected. Kristen Neff gives an example of when she was at the park. Her son is autistic, and she was starting to feel sorry for herself when he was younger and noticing other parents, with the children or who had children who looked like, they didn't have special needs. And yet she was able to reframe that like all parents struggle, right? All parents struggle. Benefits of self-compassion, happiness, hope, optimism, self-confidence, all delicious things. Self-compassion leads to a decrease, and look at this, decreasing stress, anxiety, depression, perfectionism, shame, disordered eating, and suicidal ideation, right? This is like a superpower. There's been only over 3,500 studies done on this. There's two sides of self-compassion. I think we tend to always think of just the tender side where it's warmth, care, and nurturing, but there is this really fierce side, right? The mama bear in us can come out. How can I learn from this, right? It's very energizing, self-protection, very empowering, right? Saying no, rising up, being brave, and getting that, like I need to change something, and then stepping up to this. But it's really, Neff talks about you need both sides, because if you only have the fair side, right, that leads to aggression, and we don't need any more aggression in our society. Self-compassion can also be found, I think, more with physical touch, either from others, or ourselves. This physical touch releases oxytocin in us, so important, increasing our feelings of trust, calm, and safety, reducing cortisol, and calms, right, our cardiovascular stress that we're having so much of. And I'm going to encourage you in this next one, or invite you, I should say. We're going to do a different loving kindness than what we're doing at the end. This is from Jack Kornfield, one of my favorite mentors out there too, Buddhist psychologist. If you feel comfortable to hold your hand when we go through this meditation, put your hand on your heart. You can simply put your hands on your legs. Perhaps hold your face, hold your body. Um, Again, just an invitation, and just see how this lands. May I be filled with compassion for myself and others. May I hold myself with care and respect. May I treasure my life. May I be filled with kindness. Just notice, how was that for you? Taking that little self-compassion, loving kindness break. Here we have embedded another nature picture. Again, just take that breath, some nice, slow, deep breaths in. If you feel comfortable, you can raise your hands, raise them above your head with a deep breath in. And exhale, bring the hands down. Deep inhale up. And exhale. And to our last part here, trauma stewardship. We are in the home stretch. This trauma stewardship book, I'm not sure if many of you are familiar with it. If you aren't, I would encourage you looking into it. And it's helpful for all fields, not just mental health practitioners. It's for nursing and the medical field and environmentalists and everybody who's working with others. So some brief definitions here, right? Burnout can happen in any profession. It does not have to be in mental health or a medical profession, which is the stress and frustration caused by your workplace. Usually takes a longer time to develop. But if you leave your job, this is going to go away. That's one way to cure or get rid of burnout. Whereas compassion fatigue, right? It's the deep and emotional, physical wearing down when you are unable to refuel and renew, right? Your heart gets tired. Then what is secondary traumatic stress? This can come on very quickly. Trauma experienced as a result of exposure to a client's trauma and a client's trauma reactions, right? Charles Figley is saying that this is a natural consequence of doing this work, right? When we have knowledge of trauma experienced by a significant other, it's stress from wanting to help. It doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. To me, it just really shows how powerful trauma is. Many factors kind of contribute to the secondary traumatic stress. One being empathy, how much empathy we have, with our recovery time being too short, which happens, right? Again, it all fits right with our more and more demands for our services. We can feel isolated, not valued, lack of systemic resources. Right? We are required sometimes to listen to similar stories or the same one over and over, day after day, and that can contribute to this secondary traumatic stress. We can tolerate this stress more, though, that Perry is saying, that if we feel valued and respected, right? Again, if we're practicing this resilience. From the NCTSN, other things that make us vulnerable is, again, related to the content, working with the younger children, the intensity of the work, again, with the empathy, use of self in our work. Often we have ambiguous successes, like we do not know, right, how things eventually turn out for the families and individuals we're working with. And this is a non-reciprocal, right, giving and attentiveness. Back to Charles Figley. It is unethical not to attend to your self-care as a practitioner because self-care prevents harming those we serve. So a plan can be that through our work, we absorb the traumas, right, that our families have experienced, and we need to process these and experiences in a safe and reliable environment. Back to reflective practice. Again, the book, The Trauma Stewardship, that I'm highly recommending. And just a few brief slides now on a summary of what's in the book. Our trauma exposure response, right? How we are affected by the suffering of others. And this is universal, right? We can ask ourselves these questions. How do we arrive on this path to do this work? How are we affected by this work? It is truly an honor to do this work, and yet it carries big responsibility. How do we make sense of this work? How do we learn from this? Right? And back to how we arrived, the closer connection, right, we have to this work, probably from our previous experiences, the greater gifts we're going to bring, and that also increases the likelihood of this work impacting us in negative and hard ways. Again, her recommendations are to stay present no matter what. Paying attention now, how am I different now than when I was, right? Last week, last month, a few years ago. And balance, right? We need to be able to feel that the suffering and the joy. And how do we do that? And a quote from the book, the more we protect ourselves through not being fully present to what is unfolding in our lives, the more we feel the effects of trauma exposure. Vandernoot Lipsky is recommending that we can sustain our work with trauma only if we combine our capacity for empathy with a dedication to personal insight and mindfulness. Like, who are we? What is our own history of hardship and suffering? Right? How do we look for joy and build that in? Because to know joy, right, we can't shut down the pain. We need to be able to feel both of those and be present with whatever rises. Courage's honest assessment of exposure to trauma. How does that influence our feelings, our behaviors? Right. Jack Cornfield, I mentioned him before with the loving kindness meditation, likes to have this quote of this too, right? When something happens, instead of shutting it down, just be really open to just saying this too, this too. It's a challenge to feel our full range of feelings, right? To stay present when we're hearing these hard things. We are training ourselves, though, to open our hearts to everything that comes through the door. It's challenging to feel, right? It's worse not to feel. what are we to do? Right? It can be really tempting. And I've worked with some people like this who kind of put on a hard shell, right? We harden ourselves. We kind of dissociate when it gets too hard. Um, yeah, how do we really balance? And again, she's saying the more deeply we can connect with ourselves, the more likely we are to find what we need to do our work joyfully and well. This takes courage, it takes practice, right? And practicing compassion every step of the way. Or they will be sending out a few handouts and from this talk, and one is coming from the Trauma Stewardship Institutes. It's called Map for Managing One's Life, and I think that will be helpful. So that can be coming to your inbox soon. Here we go. We just have a few more slides left. One more picture. This is from California High Sierra. That's when we do this one. Let's put our right ear, bring it down to your right shoulder and just hold it. And if you want, you can put your left hand out, take a deep breath in and blow it out. About chin up, now left ear down to left shoulder. Again, and if you want to put your right hand out, take a deep breath in and blow it out. Let's have our chin at the beginning and bring your chest down, your chin down to your chest. Deep breath in, blow it out. Feel that stretch at the back. Going back to Bruce Perry, another really important mentor, and I know I've mentioned that before, but I really want to highlight, think of ways, right, that you can bring more predictability in your life, more moderation of the stress that you have, and more controllability. And even just small things as you're looking for hope and health, like can you agree to do lunch outside once a week? Can you limit how much Zoom? And ironically, right, we're on Zoom right now, but Zoom taxes our neurobiology, right? So we just need to be aware and again, come with that compassion. Perry is encouraging us to have more time to process, to think, to reflect, and we need organizational care models, right? Can our agencies and organizations step up to share this? I already mentioned we aim. So we're getting close to the end here. Here's our check-in again, or in a way I should call it check-out. I know this has just been even less than an hour here, but take a breath and notice, has your number changed at all? Hopefully increased, hopefully didn't go back down the scale. And again, if you feel comfortable, put that in the chat, but only if you would want to do that. As I see it, we are all just walking each other home. I'm really grateful for your time today. I'm also grateful and thankful for the work that you're doing, no matter what field you're in. We need to be connected. Pulling it all together here. If you feel comfortable, please share in the chat one thing that you want to hold on to or remember from this time together. And it's time for questions. If anybody has, you want to come off or put them in the chat. Hopefully, Denton, you can help me here if there's any questions that come up.
Yeah, any questions can definitely go in the chat. Um, yeah, it looks like we don't have any right now, but I do want to personally thank you. I think you've provided some really great grounding strategies for me. Um, we have a comment from Heather Brady. Um, now she likes the book recommendations. But yeah, I mean, just generally, I think these are some great strategies for me personally. So thank you for your time today. This was an amazing presentation. Um, did you have anything else to add to that, Stacy, or is that the
Sure. Well, just one last picture and one last let's end with a love and kindness meditation.
Sure.
And these, would that be okay, Denton? Just some wishes that I have for each of you. Um,
Absolutely. I think that'd be great.
Great. We will send this out. And I believe this is a picture from Oregon. My wishes for each of you. May you be happy and content. May you be healthy. May you be safe and protected. May you dwell in peace. Thank you.